Revenge films.
My husband was born and raised in the city. On the other hand, I was born and raised in the countryside. I moved to the city to study at a certain university. People like me who live from the countryside to the city are commonly referred to as a country girl. Then, a few years after I graduated from university, I met my future husband at the company where I worked. During our conversations, we talked about our university alma maters, and that's when we realized that we graduated from the same university. Since then, we hit it off right away. We chatted more about our experiences and we got to know more about each other deeply. When my husband and I first met, I've already been living in the city for years, so I was already familiar with and used to city life, but there was not a single time when my husband made fun of me because I'm from the countryside. Instead, when I told him that I grew up surrounded by nature with the sea and the mountains, his eyes sparkled and he told me that he would love to see the place where I grew up in. That is why I took him to the local countryside on a trip when we got married. He ran around the beaches and riverbeds like he became a little boy once again. When I took him to the mountains where I used to run around and play with my friends, he hiked there and explored with excitement. I still love my very energetic husband very much to this day. However, his mother apparently wanted him to marry someone who was born and raised in the city like him. So when I first met my husband's parents, his mother asked me where I was from. When I replied that I was from the countryside, she made a disgusting looking face. Even after my husband and I got married, my mother-in-law treated me like a stranger, not a family. I never even experienced hanging out, just the two of us with my mother-in-law, let alone shopping with her. My husband already complained to his mother regarding her attitude towards me. However, my mother-in-law didn't change and she continued to treat me like a nobody, so my husband told me that there is no need for me to get involved with her. Then, one day, I received a phone call from my mother-in-law. She complained that she received something from my parents and she told me that I should go to her house immediately. I didn't want to go meet her especially alone, but since she was talking about my parents, there was no way I would ignore her request. The only time I went to my parent-in-law house was that one time when I went with my husband to greet them. I was all the more anxious because my husband wasn't with me this time. I was all by myself driving towards my doom. I didn't know what to expect when I arrived there, so I first called my parents to ask them what they sent to my mother-in-law. They answered the phone and told me that they sent my mother-in-law fresh vegetables that they harvested from our farm. Actually, my parents own a farm and they grow various kinds of vegetables and fruits, along with raising livestock such as cows, pigs, goats, and chickens. My mother sends me plenty of fresh fruits and vegetables from her humble farm back home. Thanks to that, I don't have to go to the supermarket to buy fruits and vegetables to cook for our everyday meals. Not only do we get fresh and organic vegetables on our table, we also are able to save money on our food costs. That's hitting two birds in one stone. My husband says that the fruits and vegetables from our farm taste way better than those produced in the city, that he even overcame the vegetables that he used to dislike when he was younger. Armed with the knowledge that my mother sent fresh fruits and vegetables from her humble farm to my mother-in-law, I felt relieved thinking that if that's the case, there's no need for me to be anxious. I then headed to my mother-in-law's house with hopeful thoughts. However, the moment I arrived at her house, I couldn't believe what she spat out to me. "Your parents sent me a box of very dirty fruits and vegetables. It is covered with dirt and disgusting, so I hurled them outside. Go and dispose of those filthy crops. And oh, by the way, after you dispose of those dirty crops, go to the grocery store 5 blocks away and buy me some fresh fruits and vegetables for me instead." I was stunned by the words that came out of my mother-in-law's mouth, but I had no choice but to follow her instructions. So I headed outside where she claimed to hurl the vegetables that my parents carefully chose to send it to her. When I arrived at the site, I was shocked to see the vegetables thrown into the trash cruelly near the doghouse, where the dog's poop was thrown in. Another thing I noticed near the doghouse is the box to which my mom used to pack the fresh fruits and vegetables in was thrown near the doghouse as well. Then, when I looked closer at the box, it contained an envelope with a letter that my mom kindly wrote for my mother-in-law. However, my cruel mother-in-law didn't even care to open the envelope. She instead threw it away like it was a piece of garbage. When I tried to rescue the vegetables, my mother-in-law ran outside and shouted, "Meredith, what do you think you're doing? Aren't you thinking of sticking your hand into that pile of poop? Don't expect me to lend you our shower, you stinky, dirty country girl." The moment my mother-in-law uttered those words, I knew that something in me broke, and I've had enough of her insults. After that, I blacked out for a moment, and before I knew it, I was in my car on the way home. I didn't even stop by the grocery store to buy vegetables as I was requested to do. Then, when I arrived home, I called my husband. I was so angry and filled with rage, but I also felt sad at the same time. I desperately told my husband all the cruel things that my mother-in-law did to me. But even after that outburst, I still couldn't calm myself down, what with all the negative thoughts swirling inside my head. So I told him that I'll explain everything. My husband told me that his mother contacted him. My mother-in-law apparently told my husband that she requested me to buy fruits and vegetables at the grocery store in replacement to the fruits and vegetables that my parents sent to her from our farm, which according to her are dirty and disgusting. She continued to complain to them that I abandoned the task that she ordered me to do by going straight home from her house. My husband said that he would stop by his parents' house first before coming home to continue discussing the issue with me. He promised to listen to both sides and make his own judgment after gathering enough information, both from his mother and me, his wife. When he arrived at his parents' house after work, my mother-in-law looked very upset and angry because I didn't obey her orders, but when my husband saw the fruits and vegetables thrown into the pit near the doghouse, he said,
"How dare you do this!"
He spat out those words and came straight home after that. Upon arriving home, my husband kneeled to the floor in front of me and said,
"I am truly sorry on behalf of my mother for treating those fruits and vegetables very cruelly, despite all the hard work that your mother and father exerted into those crops. I feel very ashamed of my mother. I'm truly sorry."
My husband apologized. To be honest, he wanted to take those fruits and vegetables home, but my mother-in-law threw them into the pit filled with dog poop, so he wasn't able to do anything about the wasted food. I've also seen that site, so I understand how he felt. My husband is very furious about the whole situation, but actually, there was still something that I didn't tell him about yet. I was very offended and angry, so I headed straight home, but that was only after I did something I never thought I would do. I found myself holding a very strong adhesive that I found in my mother-in-law's basement, and then I headed to the shower room. I pushed out all the super from the tube and aimed it to fill the bathtub drainage so that it will harden and solidify. I blacked out for a moment before I got into my car. My husband is a very calm and gentle man, but that day he was the angriest I've ever seen. Seeing my husband very upset about the situation, I couldn't bring myself to tell him about what I did to the bathtub at his parents' house. So after he got out of the bath that night, with his nerves a bit more relaxed than several minutes before, I confessed to him what I did to his parents' shower room. And then to my surprise, my husband laughed out loud and said,
"Well done!"
It was then my husband's turn to make a confession. He confessed to me for the first time that his father is his real father, but his mother is actually his stepmother. And he also told me that his stepmother was very strict with him ever since he was a little boy. However, when he advanced to high school, he became physically stronger because of the sports club he joined in school. He was a bright boy and had excellent grades, so his teachers recommended him to various universities. That's when his stepmother started calling him her proud son. That was the beginning of his stepmother doting on him. Despite attending a prestigious university, her stepson fell in love with a country girl, so I realized that my mother-in-law hated me and my parents. After my husband graduated from university, he's joined a prestigious company, and now that he is 30 years old, he's appointed to a key post, and by next year, he will become section chief. That is why his stepmother was probably searching for a wife fit for her son, like the daughter of a company president, or someone of a high position in society. My husband is a handsome man, so I'm sure he'll be able to easily make women of that caliber fall for him, even if he doesn't try so hard. I still have no idea why my husband chose me of all women. I want to know most of all. While I was having a chat with my husband, I received a call from my mother-in-law. I had a feeling that she was calling about her shower room. My husband answered the call, and my hunch was right. My mother-in-law was in a fit of anger. But my husband said in an angry tone,
"That's because you did something to deserve that, right? That's just karma. You're suffering the consequences of your own doing."
Then my husband hung up the phone without saying goodbye. After that, I ignored the calls coming from my mother-in-law. Apparently, after filling the bathtub with hot water and taking a warm bath, she couldn't unclog the bathtub. When she tried to let the water flow down the drain, I heard that my mother-in-law ended up calling a plumber to fix the messy situation. The superglue did its job well because it was stiffly packed. The plumber used various tools, and it took them several hours just to pull the agglomerate of superglue out of the drainage. Because of that, the total cost was way higher than she expected it to be. My father-in-law didn't know anything, so he thought that the clogging of the drainage was my mother-in-law's doing. Well, it was a result of her heartless behavior, so she deserved that. I heard that my mother-in-law was scolded by my father-in-law because of that. When she tried to explain that it wasn't her who did that by telling him about the vegetables that my parents sent them, upon hearing that, my father-in-law was very furious. Apparently, my father-in-law's family made a living through farming, so he was aware of the struggles and challenges that came from doing farm work. He was enraged because his wife disrespected farmers. After that, my father-in-law called me and apologized for what his wife has done to the fruits and vegetables that my parents carefully grew, packed, and sent. My father-in-law then said that he will make his wife pay for what she has done. Just when I was wondering what he meant by that, he made a contract to use the communal field near where they lived and make my mother-in-law grow vegetables on her own, so that she will experience and realize how tough it is to grow vegetables from scratch. My mother-in-law, who was born and raised in the city, was forced to the communal field by my father-in-law. From soil cultivation to weed removal, she was left to do the day-to-day care of the crops. My mother-in-law never experienced touching soil in her life. It was extremely difficult for her, so she eventually threw in the towel and begged me, "Please, Sarah, tell my husband I can't do this anymore. I beg you, this is too much. There are plenty of insects and bugs, and it's too hot and humid outside. My back hurts from all the crouching. Have mercy on me. I can't do this anymore. I will never make fun of the fruits and vegetables that your parents make, so please, please forgive me." She came all the way to her house just to ask for my help, but I just smiled at her politely and declined her request. "What are you saying? Forgive you? That's outrageous. I'm looking forward to the day when you harvest the vegetables, so keep it up. I'll tell my father-in-law that I'm looking forward to the harvest of the different kinds of vegetables, okay?" When I told her that, my mother-in-law looked like she was about to cry, and then she ran out of the door. After that, I wrote to my father-in-law that I would like to request a certain vegetable to be grown. He said to leave it up to him and assured me not to worry about it. My father-in-law knows the basics of growing crops because my grandparents-in-law taught him well. That is why I'm very excited for the fresh vegetables from them. There is always a vegetable to be grown and harvested all year round, so I will definitely try to get my mother-in-law to grow a variety of vegetables.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.